Hello everyone and welcome to Topic 9. You found this video because it was linked for you in the course notes you downloaded from Brightspace. I want to thank you so much for being here. You could have been anywhere else, but you chosen to spend your precious time watching this video. I really appreciate it. Before I go any further though, I want to remind you for this topic, Topic 9 Plumbing Facilities, please download your course notes to your device of choice. Don't just rely on accessing your course notes through Brightspace, because you never know when you'll lose access to Brightspace. That's great. Without further ado, let's get started. Lovely. So as you can see, we're going to be dealing with plumbing facilities today, but I want to kind of get you in the spirit of things. Has this situation, which has appeared on the screen for you right now, ever happened to you? Have you ever had to wait in line to use plumbing facilities like a bathroom or a washroom or whatever it's called in your part of the world, right? Because there are different names depending on where in the world you are if you're speaking English in that part of the world, okay? So has that ever happened to you that you're waiting in line and it starts to turn into a game of Jeopardy, kind of like this, where you're waiting and you're waiting and you keep waiting, and then maybe you start dancing to kind of make sure that nothing escapes? That's a very awkward and uncomfortable situation, right? Okay, so here's the thing. Today with this topic, we're going to look at plumbing facilities and basically why something like this happens. In fact, let's address that right now. Why is it that sometimes, whether it's outdoors or indoors in a building, you have to get in line to use a bathroom? Could it be maybe that fewer toilets, say, had been provided for the number of people expecting to use that space, right? Okay, now, if you've made it to topic 9, it means you've covered topics 1 through 8, which is great, because a lot of things I'm going to chat about right now are going to make sense, and a lot of things are probably going in the back of your mind related to topics we've covered before, you know, related to occupancy, number of people, that sort of thing. So let's get going. To get things started, the general requirements that relate to plumbing facilities and plumbing fixtures can be found under Article 3.7.4.2 under Division B of the Ontario Building Code. And what you'll find there is basically an identification of the 3 fixtures that you and I are going to be covering as part of Topic 9. And I want to make sure that we're using the same terminology as the building code so that when we address these items, they're addressed correctly. Left to right. On the very left, we have what we commonly colloquially identify in English as a toilet. There are various euphemisms that are used, say, in Canada, but the correct term is toilet. However, the Ontario Building Code identifies this as a water closet, or WC for short. Okay? Water closet. Lovely. In the middle, we have what is found typically in male bathrooms. And as we'll learn throughout this topic, is actually used to replace some toilets in male bathrooms. These are referred to colloquially and in the building code as urinals. Okay? They're mainly used to pee in them. Okay? All right. Last one, on the very right, we have what we know as a sink, right? The building code identifies this as a lavatory. Sometimes I'll use the word lav for short, okay? But lavatory is what the building code identifies this as. These will be the 3 plumbing fixtures that you and I are going to be working on for the purposes of Topic 9. Great. The whole point of Topic 9, or at least a very big part of it, is going to be to figure out how many of these fixtures we have to provide to make sure we are never making people wait to use them, right? That's the last item that you really want people to be waiting on to use under regular conditions, under regular use for that building, under regular occupancy for that building. So how do we figure out how many plumbing fixtures we need? Well, first we have to figure out how many people are expected to be using that building. And hopefully this is reminding you of a specific topic we've covered previously, which is topic 4, which was all about figuring out the occupant load. That is, how many people are expected to be using a space depending on the occupancy of that space. So this is a nice reminder to go check that topic out. Download it to your device of choice, review the video lecture, and do the homework for it. Okay? Because I won't be reviewing it as part of this topic. Now, this is also the part where you and I get to play with the building code and start flipping through it, because that's the whole point of this course, right? Great. So pull out your building code, go to Division B, and bring up Article 3.7.4.2, which is where you want to start for plumbing fixtures. You can pause this and come back as soon as you're ready. Under Sentence 1, under Article 3.7.4.2, under Division B of the Ontario Building Code, you're informed that the way to figure out the number of plumbing fixtures in each washroom is based on the occupant load. And you're familiar with this, the occupant load, because it relates to Table 3.1.17.1, Topic 4, right? Now, what's important about this too is that you should be reminded that this brings into play Topic 3, right? Figuring out the major occupancy of a space. So if this doesn't sound familiar, you should go back to Topic 3, review that, the course notes, download it to your device of choice, view the video, do the homework. Now here's the interesting thing about the sentence 3.7.4.2.1, and that is that it says you should be using Table 3.1.17.1 except unless the occupancy of that building, of that space, is a Group D occupancy. Okay, so that's business, right? So if that occupancy is a Group D occupancy, you don't use Table 3.1.17.1. Instead, you use 14 meters squared per person. So make sure you also review Topic 2 to make sure you're comfortable with being able to rock the heck out of figuring out the major occupancy of any space. So that includes downloading the course notes to your device of choice, viewing the video, and doing the homework associated with it. Great. So we're going to start first of all with being able to determine the number of water closets, right, based on an occupancy. And typically in Canada, or I should say specifically according to the Ontario Building Code, Sentence 2, under Article 3.7.4.2 in Division B of the Ontario Building Code, when you figure out the number of water closets for a space, you divide it 50-50 between males and females, okay? There are some exceptions that are illustrated in this article, but typically, okay, 50-50, okay? When it comes to urinals, for male bathrooms only, some of those water closets can be replaced with urinals. And that's according to Sentence 3.7.4.2.3 and 4. Now, the replacement can either be no more than 2/3 of a water closets or no more than 1/5 of the total number of the water closets. No more than these. But it's dependent on occupancy. So go check these out. Now don't worry, because you and I are going to do some examples to practice this, okay? Don't sweat it. Finally, lavatories or sinks. The required number of lavatories is illustrated by Sentence 5 and 6 under Article 3.7.4.2 of Division B of the Ontario Building Code. And what it basically says, okay, this is what you want to get out of it, is you take the number of water closets for that sex, you divide it by 2, and then you round up. Now here's the thing. The reason why it's okay to round up is because sinks, lavatories are super cheap compared to, say, water closets and urinals. You don't want people that are done using their toilet and their urinal to have to wait in line to wash their hands at a sink. Okay, so it's okay if you just round up the number of sinks if you get a decimal number. Sinks are cheap, okay? You don't want people to wait in line to wash their hands. All right, so here we are now. The 6 steps to figure out the number of plumbing fixtures. 6 easy steps. They're listed right here, okay? And I'm just gonna go through them one at a time rather quickly because we're gonna do examples together. And then we're gonna specifically pick on one. First, you have to determine the occupancy, the use of that space. You know how to do this. Then you have to determine the occupant load, which is based on what we learned in topic 4, right? From table 3.1.17.1, unless it's a D occupancy. Then you divide that number of people you figure out by 2, half for females, half for males. Then you go to the correct sentence or table, depending on the occupancy, to then figure out how many water closets that means for each sex. Then, for males only, you replace some of those water closets with urinals, and finally, you figure out the number of lavatories, number of sinks. Now, specifically for step 4, I want to point this out because it's super important. Step 4, when you figure out the number of water closets, you have to select the correct article depending on the occupancy. They're listed here, and you're expected to know where to go find these in the Ontario Building Code. This is so important that right now on your screen, there is something that says, remember this, okay? So for example, if you find an A occupancy building, and you don't go to 3.7.4.3 and read under all of those sentences and articles, you go to a different location because you don't recognize that it's an assembly occupancy, that's wrong. It's a 0, okay? So this is super important. Notice how that's still blinking? Super important. So make sure you don't forget, okay? But again, we're going to do a couple of examples together. All right, let's do example number 1. What we have that's given to you here is a request to figure out the number of plumbing fixtures, the minimum number of plumbing fixtures. So that's water closets, urinals, and lavatories for each sex for the 4th story of an office building that measures 38.5 meters by 34.5 meters. Right away, I can see 4-story office building. Because it's 4 stories, it right away tells me this is a Part 3 building, right? Remember on how to distinguish between a Part 3 and a Part 9 building? So that means I must go to Part 3 of the Ontario Building Code Division B to figure all of this out. Okay, the occupancy is a D occupancy. By now you should know how to figure this out, and if not, go back to topic 2. The area of this space is 1,328.25 square meters. Okay, and now we have to figure out the occupancy for each sex. That is the number of people for each sex. So the occupant load, do we find that out from table 3.1.17.1? No, not in this case because it's a group D occupancy, right? Great. In this case only, because it's a D occupancy, office space, we use 14 meters squared per person. So if we divide the area, 1,328.25 by 14 square meters per person, we get, do the calculation, 95 people. Don't forget, humans are whole numbers, okay? Great. So that means that we take the 95 people divided by 2, half for males, half for females. Do that calculation right now. We get 48 people. Don't forget, humans are whole numbers. Great. Now, we have to find the correct building code reference related to determining how many water closets are associated with that number of people. Remember the blinking remembers this? That's where you have to go and find the correct article based on the occupancy. Because this is a D occupancy, that means we have to use sentence 3.7.4.71. So that refers us to table 3.7.4.7. And if you look at that table, right, you want to find the column in the row, the leftmost column in the row that says 25 to 49 for each sex, because we found 48, right? And if you look at that, then it tells you how many water closets in that from that table. 3 water closets for each sex. That's great. You start with females. 3 water closets, and then to find the number of lavatories, take 3, divide by 2, round up to the nearest whole number. So that's 3 water closets plus 2 lavatories. For males, a little more involved, because you have 3 water closets, but you have to find the number of urinals, because you're allowed to replace, for this occupancy, up to 2/3 of those water closets with urinals, not more than 2/3. So 2/3 of 3 is 2, and 2 is not more than 2/3 of 3, right? So 2 urinals are allowed to be placed in a men's bathroom and replace 2 of those water closets, okay? So you're only left with 1 water closet, which gives you 1 water closet, 2 urinals. How about the number of lavatories? The number of lavatories is based on the original number of water closets, okay? So we had 3 water closets for males. You divide that by 2, you get 1.5, round up to 2, voila. So let's wrap this up for the final answer. The number of plumbing fixtures that are expected for this building are as follows. For females, 3 water closets and 2 lavatories. For males, 1 water closet, 2 urinals, and 2 lavatories. Okay? Let's do another example. Let's say for this example, we're going to figure out the same thing, water closets, urinals, and lavatories, but you're told that this is on the 3rd story of a non-residential college building, measuring 33.5 meters by 22.6 meters. Furthermore, on the 3rd story, you're told that half of that area is for classrooms, half of that area is for laboratories. Interesting. We just stepped it up, okay? So here's the thing, occupancy. By now, you should be able to figure this out. It's A2, assembly. That tells me right away, because it's an A2 occupancy, this is a Part 3 building, right? So I go in Division B, Part 3 of the Ontario Building Code to figure this out, not Part 9. The area comes out to be 757.1, okay? And I'm just going to double check it here on the spot to make sure I didn't make a boo-boo. 33.5 times 22.6. Lovely. Then I need to find the occupancy for each sex. How many people are expected to be occupying this space for each sex? But first, how do I figure out the occupant load? Do I go to the table, 3.1.17.1? Yes, for sure. But I have to remember that half of that space is for classrooms, half of that space is for labs. So half of that space means that half of the area, 757.1, goes to a lab, half of that area goes to a classroom. Okay? Now, from then table 3.1.17.1, I know I need to look at the top row, only at the assembly occupancies. Okay? Nowhere else. And from there, I get that the occupant load for the class is 1.85 meters squares per person, which then tells me I can find the number of people using that space, which is 205. Humans are whole numbers. For the lab, the occupancy load factor is 4.6 meters squared per person. Okay? So based on that and half the area, I get 83 people. Don't forget humans are whole numbers. For a total of 288 people. Now that I know that, I can go through the same process again. Okay? If I know that we have a total of 288 people, I divide that by 2, so that's 144 for females, 144 for males. Great. Now, I just need to find the correct building code reference based on that occupancy, right? Remember this. Since it's A2, I want to read through all the sentences related to A occupancies and find the best one. In this case, I go to sentence 3.7.4.31. I read that, and it says, now you have to check all sentences from 2 to 16, all of them. And if none apply, you come back to this one. So I do that, and I find that the correct one is sentence 15. So 3.7.4.3.15, which says 1 water closet for each 100 males and 1 water closet for each 75 females. Great. So I go through that and I start that. So that tells me that then if I'm going to do females, I do 144, number of females, divide by 75, sorry, right? Because that's how many people per 1 water closet. That gives me 1.92, which is 2 water closets. And that tells me that then I can either use 1 or 2 lavs, right? Sinks. I'll go with 2, because sinks are cheap and you don't want people to wait in line. For males, we have 144. You divide by 100, that gives you 1.44. You round that up to 2 water closets. But before you do anything else, you have to find how many of these could be urinals. So don't forget, urinals is no more than 2/3 of 2. In this case, 1 is no more than 2/3 of 2, right? So that means that out of the 2 urinals, the 2 water closets, 1 becomes a urinal, and the other one stays as a water closet. So again, we get a 1 water closet, 1 urinal, and 1 or 2 lavs. Okay? Great. Let's wrap this up in terms of final answer. The number of plumbing fixtures for this setup, okay, is for females, 2 water closets and 1 or 2 lavs. Okay? For males, 1 water closet, 1 urinal, and 1 or 2 lavs. Great. Now, I want to point out that you're going to find a link in the description on YouTube for this video that gives an extra example. An example I'm going to take my time solving, right? Because I want to go through the very minute details of calculating water closets, urinals especially, and lavatories. Okay? I recommend that you also do the homework. Homework is your friend. It's all new, so you want to make sure you practice this. It's easy to make silly mistakes in this sort of stuff, and I want to make sure that you don't make them. Okay? Now, there are some additional requirements I want to bring to your attention, and they relate to barrier-free washrooms. Okay? These facilities relate to water closet stalls and universal toilet rooms. You can find them under Section 3.8, Barrier-Free Design. Furthermore, on your notes, I've listed all of these articles and sentences I want you to review. They're there and they're a responsibility of you to review. Okay, so check them out. That's it. I want to thank you so much for your time. You've been lovely and terrific, and I appreciate that you spent your time doing this. You could have been anywhere else, and you're here. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day.